Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the show where we feature legit leaders leading above the noise of average. I'm Joe, and I get to be the host today. It's my very favorite thing that I get to do each and every week. This is the absolute best engagement that I think that we've had yet on the show. I couldn't sleep last night, Michael. I couldn't sleep last. I have the honor and the great privilege of spending time. I'm going to call you the glad scientist. Okay,
I'll take it.
That smile is unbelievable. The president of Fairleigh Dickinson University, Dr. Michael Albatrani. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you so much. Great to be here with you today. Looking forward to our conversation.
Fantastic. Hey, I need to point out something right out of the gates. I had the most conflicted. It was both weird and wonderful. It was an opportunity to come back and be the high school principal, okay, of the high school that couldn't wait for me to graduate because of all of the headaches, right, that I gave my teachers and the administration. Now, from what I understand, you started as a student at FDU in the 90s when grunge rock was really good grunge rock. And now you lead the institution. Tell me, weird, wonderful, both.
Yes, all of the above. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I actually started as an undergraduate. I was here on the campus I'm sitting on right now, doing research my freshman year with an undergraduate mentor who I stayed close with. Went on and did graduate school, and he notified me as I was finishing up that he was going to be retiring and said, I think you should come and interview for my job. I often say it's the only job interview I've ever actually been on because I went and interviewed and they said yes. And I said yes as well and got started here. And it was very strange because then all of my mentors and faculty and everyone else became colleagues and peers. And so it's been a very interesting journey. And there are still a few folks, some stayovers, who are actually here and have been here the whole journey from the time I walked on campus as a student and are still
Wow.
teaching or still supporting students through that entire journey. So it's wonderful to see.
You are just a rare, I think that's such a rare example of somebody starting that full circle, right? It's that full circle perspective that I think brings an entirely different benefit, right? In terms of your vision for the university. Tell a little bit about maybe what it once was back in the 90s and what it is becoming, which is a transitive verb. You're not there yet.
Yes, yeah, no, we are on a journey and that journey continues. So, one of the things I think that's always been interesting about me is that the thing I loved about my time here was the fact that I was part of a small environment where people knew me, right? The thing that we've always boasted about at the time I was here as a student, and we try to really kind of leverage now still, is that personal aspect of being able to engage students and kind of meet them where they are and truly bring them on a transformative journey. So a lot of that was what I experienced as a student. It was what I loved about this place, and it was the reason why I wanted to come back. It was that opportunity to really engage with and make an impact on students. And I think what's really changed and where we're headed is seeing how that has taken on, in many cases, a new life as new learners come to us. We have a much different learner base now than we did when I was a student here, both in terms of demographics, in
Right.
terms of the things that they want and need out of their college experience. And part of it is also that we've seen that, frankly, times have so rapidly changed, more so now in the past 10 years than probably in the past 100 before that, that what we provide for students needs to change as well. And how we deliver that personalized experience looks different now today than it did a few years back and will look very different still in a few years from now. So it's thinking about how do we build on the legacy of a
Mm.
true personalized transformational journey, but do it in an age of technology, in an age of new desires, new aspirations, and new students. And I think that's the journey that we're on right now.
Mm. I'm right on the bookshelf here. I'm rereading. This is the one thing. A great book on just that surprising, simple truths about extraordinary results. How do you build systems for extraordinary results? And I'm really curious that pivotal moment because I also did some backtracking. That one thing that made you transition from the glad scientist. Did I read 10 patents of your own? Right
Yeah.
to
So that was the
focusing focusing now on an entirely different arena of educational leadership. What was that one thing, that pivotal moment that had you go, "Hmm,
So it was,
I'm
I
curious."
often say I'm sort of the accidental administrator, right? My journey was I loved the science part. One of the things I loved truly the most, and probably the thing I miss the most right now, was classroom teaching. I loved teaching freshman chemistry to students who were just discovering themselves and their
Mm,
desires and their passion for science, because that was me as a on my journey. I actually hated chemistry in high school. Took chemistry because I was the thing I got as sort of a freshman and got to register for last, and in 5 weeks, I was sort of transformed by a true kind of immersive experience with a faculty member. But that was what I loved. I loved doing
mm.
that. I loved taking students through the research journey. And in about 2008, I was approached by our then university president, Michael Adams, and he said, "We're considering starting a pharmacy school. What do you think?" And I said, "I have no idea. I'll get back to you." And I did a little bit of a deep dive on what would pharmacy school accreditation look like, what could a pharmacy school be if you were building it new from scratch. And we sort of took that journey, and I said, "Look, I think we can do this, and I think I we can take it not just in a direction of being another school of pharmacy, but a truly different school of pharmacy."
Wow.
And that became the mantra. And suddenly I became the one man band of creating this program, because we didn't have anybody hired yet. We didn't have anybody sort of foundationally to build it. So I stepped out from the faculty role I had and became the sort of lone administrator to create our pharmacy program.
Mm.
And I did it from a complete outsider's view, which was the greatest experience probably for me, and frankly, even for those around me, because I couldn't lean back on the this is the way we've always done it, right? So much of what you often have is I had a pharmacy school experience, so I want it to be this way. I had nothing to lean back on, had never seen a pharmacy
Tabula
program
rasa.
before.
Tabula
And
rasa.
exactly. And that became the sort of beginning of that journey. And then from there, we created a PA program, we created an occupational therapy program, a social work program, a public health program, and did it the same way each time, taking a look at the what if we had a truly clean canvas? What could we create and what could we do? And that became the sort of excitement of that next decade of my life as an administrator and set me up on this journey now.
My guess is probably overnight you had the white paper pretty well forged in your head of how I would go about creating a pharmacy school. I just understand just, yeah, how brilliantly that mind of yours actually is. I want you to brag away a little bit. FDU is on the grow. I see you as an institution on the grow. What are some of the more exciting initiatives currently underway on campus?
I think one of the big things we're really leaning into is our health science programming, and really creating a kind of cohesive brand, if you will, of health science and health adjacent programs to really rethink what could a university be if it doesn't have a medical school but wants to lean into that. It's interesting because I was talking to somebody in the healthcare space, and they said, the thing you have to embrace is not feeling less than because you're not medical school centric, but actually thinking of all the new opportunities that opens for you because you're not beholden to a medical school at the center. So we've really been leaning into that very heavily to say, what does it look like if we
Mm,
begin to think about these health and healthcare adjacent programs to becoming a lot of the core of our path forward? So much of that directly linked to the realities of the day, where many more students are finding their way into degrees and programs that link directly to the world of work, that link to licensure and link to opportunity, and also addressing this real crisis that we're facing right now in New Jersey and the surrounding region of a tremendous shortage of healthcare practitioners. So we're leaning heavily into this as a real opportunity for us, but again, trying to think also outside of the box. How do we take our hospitality program, which has a very strong legacy and more traditional hospitality aspect, and actually link that to healthcare and to the hospitality of health, thinking about embracing the patient experience and bringing patients on that hospitality journey, leaning into our business and entrepreneurship programs,
mm.
leaning even into other programs that oftentimes are sort of lesser thought of in this space, but critically important, particularly in the changing dynamics of how we deliver care, and also how we will use things like AI to replace some of the needs of a physician or a nurse or someone else, and then need to replace those skills with much more humanistic skills that we believe will be critical for empathy and empathic understanding and servant leadership that we
Oh
believe
my
is at the
goodness.
center of healthcare.
Oh my goodness. You get it. To use the term adjacent, healthcare adjacent, but you also talked earlier about being an institution that will create safe and meaningful just environments for people to feel like they're welcomed here. So because so many, you know, potential students in the community are also campus adjacent for whatever reason, right? They've just had bad experiences or and to reclaim that space,
A
I think
big
it's just such an
opportunity. Yes.
amazing opportunity for you at the
Yeah.
moment.
And we
Yeah.
feel like there's a couple of things we've done strategically to really try and own exactly what you articulate as these key spaces. We've actually created a program through a gift that we received from a donor, one of our more significant gifts we received in the life of our university, to create what's called Transforming College Campuses, which is TCC, which stands for Thrive, Create, Connect, which is really a sort of student journey program that creates integration between a Center for Empathy Research and Training that we created to help students understand both empathy to others and empathy to self, created and integrated a lot of mental health supports, and created a lot of academic connections and other pieces to really try and create student journeys that address the complex needs of today's students that aren't just academic in nature. They're
Mm.
around mental health, they're around social integration, they're around navigating very complex issues that we're seeing play out in real time in young people. And then to sort of complement, realizing that that probably is more conducive for your more quote unquote traditional college
Right.
student. We've then looked at addressing the ways to embrace non traditional audiences by going out and creating a community based program where we deliver education on demand to students, meeting them truly where they are in their community. So we've integrated into workspaces throughout New Jersey programs that we're delivering to student cohorts that require them to never come on campus, that we deliver to them in a way that is meaningful, community connected, not fully online, but embraces the true community aspect of learning. And in some cases, that sort of feeling of being part of a team, being part of a classroom, but does it with the flexibility that many learners need in order to be able
So
to
good.
navigate higher education.
So good. I saw an eye-popping stat about something about like 250 partnerships that you've established over the course of your tenure as president. I mean, one partnership, if it's meaningful and significant, is that's time intensive. But 250 and the benefit that that brings. We had a previous guest who talked about just arguing the point of who is your customer, who is your client, and he came from this mindset of our partners are our clients,
Yeah.
which, it's
Yep.
arguable, but that level of gravitas to that the significance of partners and partnerships informing the work that must be done on
Yeah.
campus.
It's critically important, and it's one of the things we've talked about, I think, in addressing that very thing. Much of the future of higher education is a B2B approach, right? Business to business, because that's the way that you can scale to really deliver to a customer base that can truly be supported by your products, right? We've said, the example being we're at Novartis, for example, delivering an MBA program. If we tried to recruit 20 individual students at Novartis by just standing around in the parking lot and asking them, do you want to do an MBA? We'd be there a very long time and we probably would get one, right? Going through the business connection and that relationship, they immediately sent out an email blast through their intranet. They offered a discount. They offered the conducive conference room where we would meet. And suddenly we had cohorts where we actually filled up and had to have a wait list, right? And so a lot of that is the, I think, meaningful connection that we create. One of the things we did actually early on when we created the pharmacy school, we brought our team through Disney Institute training. And Disney has always been about customer engagement. And in their case, they talk about, the guest experience. But they talk about that the first thing they work on is their cast members, their staff, because having connected cast members and having a meaningful experience created makes for a seamless guest experience, right? And so we've talked about a lot in changing the lens of focus around the college campus to be much more like Disney World and much less like this sort of sterile experience where you sink or swim on the basis if you get lucky and meet the right people, which is not what
Yes.
we want our students to experience.
That's absolutely fascinating. I'd love to drill in more to that whole Disney experience, and I think our viewers would like we might bring you back just to talk
Sure, sure.
specifically
We'd love to.
about that. And your peers, our viewers are tuned in today and they're running fast like you are. They're closing gaps. They're looking for new ways to stay in demand in a world that needs maybe a little more hope, right? And the
Yes.
I just heard today, hope is not happiness. Hope is actually just honesty.
Yeah.
So if you had just some closing thoughts of wisdom and honest encouragement that you would have to share with your friends who are turning in today, what would that be?
I think the thing we always find our biggest encouragement from is in the stories of our students. I think it's so easy, especially now in the challenges of what higher education is experiencing and the difficulties with cost and the difficulties with tuition and the difficulties with is a college degree worth it? And then with the greater world being so fractured and so polarized and so tribal in nature, sometimes it's easy to lose perspective. And then you talk to a student and you hear their story and you hear of the journey that they're on, where they're here oftentimes on the expense, with every dollar being spent and truly kind of trying every way possible to get here and realizing that the opportunity that they have, particularly a student who comes to us as a first generation student or oftentimes from an underrepresented group in college, they have the opportunity to transform, I always say, three generations: themselves, their children, and their family unit around them. And when you hear the stories of how this oftentimes happens through 4 years here on campus and a degree that takes them places that, frankly, they never imagined they could go, that's when you realize we do have a lot that to be hopeful for. Because when we get this right, there is nothing like a college experience and a college education to set a path towards meaningful work, but also on a life journey that really has huge impact for the individual, their family, and the society around them. So my hope is often, and when I talk to students, hearing about how they really are coming to us to really with the expectation and promise that we make to them of a dream fulfilled through the journey they take with us. And when we get it right and that they're on the stage at commencement or they're coming back to us and telling us of the achievements, it reminds us that this is very worthwhile work and that the future generation we're investing in is very much worth the investment we're making. And I think
Uh,
that's the way in which every day I hope we can kind of motivate ourselves.
Worthy work indeed. Michael, you've inspired me to a whole new level. It's been a heavy week. I think we're going to be enduring a number of heavy weeks
Yes.
in our near future. I just want to thank you. Thank you. You're a very busy man, and we've covered probably just a smidge, right, of all that is good and productive. And I would encourage our viewers out there to keep FDU on the watch. As a campus, really modeling a very unique and significant and impressive way. I think you can find them at fdu.edu, correct?
Correct.
Yes. Yes. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us. This has been the show with Joe, reminding you that everyone deserves to live in a community served by healthy leaders like this amazing human right here, who are building healthy teams and leading highly reliable systems. Hey, before we wrap up, if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment, support the cause, hit that button, do all the things the kids are doing, right? Leave a comment, share the episode with a colleague. Your engagement truly does. It helps us reach more leaders and continuing to bring you valuable content from the brightest learning leaders across America. Until next time, this is Dr. Joe on purpose to cancel any and all things that are average. Peace and press on, friends.